We are live. This is Senate Finance. We just delivered the housing bill and it has been referred to approach. So I'm pretty sure voted out momentarily. Probably all the money struck out. And we can, technically, I think I've been asked, we can ask to have that bill passed over until we're ready to present a floor amendment. However, if we ask more than once, we'll probably be pushing our luck. We are right now having an increased drafting scarcity because both drafters have followed the bill across the hall. So we're going to have to do the best we can, and I thought Ashley was going. Yeah, if Ashley's hanging around and she's going to try and do traffic control and see if we can get it right. I can figure out, and our main section, but as I read through this, and I really do need them to Cameron walk us through the whole bill. I do keep finding things like that ADU tax exemption and stuff that does fall in our domain. But most of us starts on section 16, which I have a printed version is start on page 28. I think when it says affordable housing, that is a definition of middle income housing, not and we can leave it as affordable. But the average person here is affordable, and they think down street housing is perpetually subsidized affordable. And I had thought of middle income. I don't know if there's a standard term, because that's what makes this different. We're trying to build.
So, thanks,
Yeah.
like, what is, without looking at some definitions,
Yeah.
what is middle income housing in New York?
To me, it means housing that a teacher, two teachers, all right, a family, an average income family in the state can afford to buy. So that would be people starting out in business, not executives, workers.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably not your minimum wage folks. That's who we do affordable housing.
So would those people purchase that housing without subsidy? Yes.
That's right.
That's what it's designed to do. So why don't we just call it affordable housing and market housing?
Because the market rate, what we've heard, maybe we need to get the home builders in here, is that and I'm probably saying we as economic development, that with the cost of timber, that's pre-tariffs, but everything, copper, plastic wire, copper wire, everything.
Yeah.
With the cost of everything, materials and labor, which with inflation has gone up, they cannot. Well, several years ago, it was build a house for under $350,000. Years ago, we figured the cost in Montpelier to do the infrastructure, and it was $300,000 before you even started to put up a frame. So if you can reduce that infrastructure cost, basically the public infrastructure, water, sewer, streets, then if that cost is off the developer, then he can afford to sell the house in that range
Yeah,
that people
I
can spend.
understand that. I guess what it is, we're putting money into infrastructure to build all types of housing. Some of that housing that we build will be subsidized, so people can purchase the homes.
Yes,
Other pieces will not be subsidized, and people will purchase those homes.
right.
And so
Madam Chair.
I'm just trying to think of a word that describes people that are able to buy a home without subsidy.
And I think that's why I was looking at middle income,
Okay,
which is loose enough if we put a number in there. Because you could be middle income and $300,000 worth of medical school debt and not be able to afford a house. I mean, I think it's people that are too wealthy to get into a down streets my local housing. You know,
Yeah.
But to get into your subsidized housing, their
they
income.
don't qualify for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're too high for that, but they don't make enough to afford a $500,000 house. At the 30,000, it's 30,000. It's 30% of your income for the housing payments, and then 36 for taxes and insurance, and those.
And that's the HUD definition.
Yeah, and that's the standard real estate, and that's the standard mortgage definition.
So is middle income an expanded eligibility for these types of people that don't qualify for the normal affordable subsidy?
The most usable definition that you see is 80 to 150% of area median income. And
Okay.
Q uses it, a lot of organizations that measure that use it, but I don't know that there's a definition specific in HUD that addresses it.
So what's in this one? It's a
This one is different. than this.
150% of their AMI?
Well, we use 150%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah, I think this is an expanded
Yeah.
definition of
Yes.
affordable housing, which I think I'm a little concerned that if we use a different definition for affordable housing in this bill, that's different than other affordable housing programs we have, it's going to confuse the matter.
I agree.
So what I think
Okay,
what
you
I
wanna
would
keep it in
suggest is that we go back to the sort of standard definition of affordable housing and have that. That might be already in the chapter. I don't know. And that's a drafting attorney question. I don't know if we need to repeat it or not. And then we create
I
a
asked Tamara to
different.
look at that, by the way, before you left today. As
Okay.
I said, that one of the things I think we need is commonality definition.
Yeah, I think if
So we aren't
we
using
confuse-
definitions of different.
Exactly.
The same.
Then we could create a definition for a middle income housing or whatever term we want to use. And maybe Senator Chinnan already has one.
The one term that Senator Hinsdale caught me on that is that middle income can be problematic, and she proposed a moderate income if we want to propose that definition.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to bring her into the conversation. I know she is.
Yeah, I'm trying to let this committee,
Okay.
this is the best discussion we've had. I don't want to interrupt it at the moment. But Senator Hinsdale is welcome to come up. And we're trying to find a way. We've got two concerns. I do. We're trying to, by allowing infrastructure to be publicly financed. And that, well, that was just the back of the envelope this morning to start the discussion, to allow it to be publicly financed. Want to make sure that people understand that we are doing this for your nurses, your teachers, your business people, people that are making more than minimum wage. They don't qualify to go into Evernorth or, yeah. And then also make sure that, because the worst thing that can happen is if it turns out we do one or two condo things for worker housing. And then everybody else is ski chalets and this is the maids for the chalets. So we want to but we've been told that putting a percentage on there, and I think we understand that in order to make these projects pencil, and you have had time to have more than we have, that you may have to have some commercial space, or if it's in a downtown, you may have to fix up downstairs so you can run the water through it, but that you've got to have flexibility to make this pencil. But in giving the flexibility, I think we don't want to find out that we're subsidizing with people's property tax dollars. Upper mansion, upper income housing, or God forbid, second homes. So that's, I think we're just, because we have not had a drafter or time to go through the entire bill, and now we can't get drafted. So we're working our way through here.
For the record,
Okay.
Senator Keisha Lonsdale, so you saw me wiggling around on your left as you used to when I was a member of this committee. And I am the reporter of the bill, so I thought I could be helpful to you all, and just appreciating that you moved it along, but you are wrestling with the exact same question we wrestled with and felt like we had to move it along without this answer. So I would say our committee is very much at your disposal to try and help define exactly what you're wrestling with. And as you know, there's multiple percentages we're talking about. You know, we could, overall, there was a desire to move in the direction of ensuring there was some housing component to this. But we lost one vote in our committee specifically because it had to only be ascribed to a housing project. I'm very open to that. That doesn't sound like the discussion you're having now, but
We haven't even gotten there.
okay. So if you're talking about a percentage of housing overall, that's one question. A percentage of what would be considered perpetually or traditionally affordable housing is one conversation, and a percentage of what the advocates, I will say, asked me to present or convey as moderate income housing.
Yes, that's the difference between this and all our other
Right.
affordable housing.
Right.
It's subsidized.
Yes. Well, and I understand Senator Beck's line of inquiry, because we have been circling around at what number Vermonters can afford a home, pay their bills on time without subsidy or support. And that number is increasing with interest rates, with inflation, et cetera.
It
So
varies.
yes,
If the price of housing crashes,
right,
which if the market does what it's done in history, it will,
right.
we'll have a different set of problems.
Yeah, maybe I'll say one more thing and then I'll open it for questions, because then I'm doing a probes. But the reason that AMI is often used is because it is a flexible figure based on region. So I'm sorry, I only know the Chittenden County figure, which also applies to Franklin County because it's a regional number. But area median income for the Chittenden County region is $95,000. So at about right now at $95,000, you're not generally able to afford a median priced home in Chittenden County or above. So, you know, we at some point we were trying to figure out, to answer maybe some of the auditors' questions, exactly what percent of area median income you could afford the average home, and then take it up a little bit from there. But it's probably somewhere between 120 and 150 of area median income at which you can afford a home.
Senator Bray, when we were looking at the affordable heat act, told me it was 80 in Washington County.
Okay,
But that was a couple of years ago.
right.
So it might be higher now because of inflation, but
Right. So in practice,
sounds close.
yeah, in practice, definitionally, Affordable housing is deeply subsidized, or affordable housing is up to 60% AMI. And then 60 plus, 60 to 150 is the range that we're currently using for moderate income because it's fluctuating so much with
Because
interest.
that's,
rates.
that's,
That's the.
It's big.
Depends on the definition.
Otherwise, you'd be leaving out 50 to
100%.
80. Yeah, so 60 to 150.
I
Okay,
guess HUD is using 60, but things like Q and most of the others are using 80, so it.
Right, but we wouldn't want to create a donut hole of
It's not
like lower
we usually use.
moderate.
I mean, still gonna have to go to your bank and get a mortgage. This is just, we're gonna see if we can't get that little prefab made out in East Montpelier, which has exactly, well, I don't know if theirs do, but the ones around here, known as Bechdel homes, have exactly the same floor plan as a double wide. Except the walls are wood and not cardboard. And the outside walls are wood and it's on a foundation. But they're basic 3-bedroom, 2-bath, very small footprint. No garage, that's an extra, but definitely a home on a small lot that a family can live in comfortably. A lot of state workers in there. We laid off 200 state workers during the downturn. There were a lot of for sale signs that went up. That's
So
how
there might be folks who can help you calculate some of these figures over the weekend. You know, who could say, hey, this is the median or mean home price right now and XYZ, and here's the relationship to AMI.
I just sent everybody the AMI chart.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
AMI
Send it to
Yay.
This is
the,
great.
to the.
Yeah, we have it. I have it like in my desk, but yes, that's great.
okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, Madam Chair. I like the definition here. I'm wondering, to Senator Hardy's point, is this going to be in conflict with the statutory definition of affordable? And if so, what problems is that going to cause?
It does make me extremely uncomfortable, and it makes the housing advocates uncomfortable as well. This was, drafting where I have almost never been comfortable with, this is just the definition for this section, don't worry about it, especially because we talk about the definition of affordable housing so much that it feels like a policy decision to create a new one that mushes together very low income people with people at 150% AMI.
Okay, so how do we fix this?
So I am happy to be at your disposal and work with you on an amendment, either for, I guess for the floor, because the purpose needs to get this out today and I need to go over there, but I'm just saying you are circling around the same principles and definitional parameters we are.
I guess I'm just wondering, because I'm still relatively new here.
Yes.
So is it a question of just like swapping out the word affordable? Is it a question of creating a whole new definition?
And unfortunately, that is the drafting question, and we ran into the same, loss of time. What I think is most appropriate is that we actually, wherever we see this, we try to have the same definition. So we put middle income there because we had started to operate with a definition for middle housing programs. And there's a missing middle definition for rental and a missing middle definition for homeownership. And now, if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, if you're talking about missing middle for renters, that is a spectrum because the price will go up in the future. So we have a missing middle revolving loan fund. And for the first 7 years, let's say, it's set at only a 3% rent increase. And then after that, it might go to market a little more gradually. But we can go very deep down the rabbit hole of what we mean. And I like my goal, whether or not we achieve it in this bill or not, is to have that definition of live somewhere in statute so we can revisit it every so often when we need to.
What about the missing middle definition?
I wanted to tie it to that, but that is a session law program. We have not put it in the base fund.
Yeah, we need to find the median housing price in Washington County is $347,000 $3,667.
That sounds pretty good.
Say that again?
Or like you're at a house, it's like a unicorn house that's like on a hill somewhere, invisible to the world.
And the median days pending is 40 days on the market.
Right, and so even if we found some kind of more strict or principled definition, I want to give it an inflator, like a quick 10% up from that, because no one can find the average priced home right now.
That it's got to include some chicken coops.
Yes,
I
yeah,
mean, I've watched my daughters, which we bought, I think, for 157. We sold it 2 years later for 227. It is now 4 years later. Zillow says it's worth almost 330. Nothing has been done to
Yeah.
it. She did have it weathered,
right,
but whoever bought it when we sold it,
Right.
it hasn't.
exactly. And Madam Chairman, really, since you've been on economic development, we've gone from 120 to 150 for that very reason. It's moving so quickly out of range for someone to get no subsidy or no tax credit or no support.
And she was in her 40s when she could afford to buy this, and only with the VHFA down payment,
Right,
which
exactly.
the biggest problem is if you can't come up with 20% down on a $350,000 house, you pay, it used to be like $300 a month in mortgage insurance. It's probably up. Because it's like the reserve fund and the ed fund. The banks want to make sure that the money is there. If you have 20% down, they assume you have enough money to pay your mortgage or somebody. So that's a program we need to keep and
Mhm.
perhaps but yeah, I think the question, I think what we're trying to do is just make sure that it's understood that when developers come in, that we're expecting them to develop as much middle income, missing
Mhm.
middle, whatever you want to call it. And maybe VHFA has a definition. But that's what you're getting the subsidy for, not to make it cheaper for you to build 5 nice houses up here and 2 duplexes down here.
Mhm.
We're paying for the infrastructure to the duplex, not for the road and the water and sewer. For the nicer houses, up on the other side of the hill in this project. And I don't know how you write that, but I don't want to see this program abused I think you were here when there was the original audit of the St. Albans TIF. I know you were. We spent a lot of time on the phone that summer.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, just things that we hadn't covered in the law, that people who thought they were doing the right thing, the auditor said they weren't, and then COVID hit. It took us 2 years or more, 3 years, I think, to get the corrections into law. It was on the calendar the day we got sent home. And we couldn't get it taken up for 2 years after that. It's much better
Yeah.
to write it clearly and maybe more tightly at first and then loosen it. If they come back and say,
Right.
geez, but for 50
That's
more
true.
bucks, that would.
Yeah, and if Maura Collins is launching, VHFA has made themselves so competent and fit at their jobs that would be the natural people I would look to help us with this. They probably need additional support or resources, so they really do have to speak for themselves. But yeah, I mean, they've made success out of middle income programs. So
So maybe, Charlotte, we'll see if more, Collins or somebody,
Chad or I think
somebody,
around.
they're across the hall.
Oh, and I should go too.
What's our goal for the next, like, today?
So, yeah.
I think we need to decide what information we need for Tuesday, who we need to get to come in. Ideally, we should have something drafted and ready to go for Wednesday. I think we could probably ask to get this passed over once.
I'm okay with that. I'm the
After
right
that,
man.
they'll start to glare at us. But,
Well, it's, yeah,
Just be on notice Tuesday.
it'll be on notice Tuesday anyway, so if you
Yeah,
want it passed
and-
over Wednesday, I'll live.
yeah, so and then we can do it Thursday. I mean, a lot of it we've got to get our drafters.
Mhm.
But first we need to decide, so we'll get the HFA to come in, they do a missing middle kind of program, they put together the financing.
Yes, I would suggest VHFA and Champlain Housing Trust, Chris Donnelly, because they've just been the closest in touch with us to try and figure this definition out. Everyone else you have around the room, you know, is helpful as well, but we have been noodling on this very question for a week, and so if they've come to a good place, that's great. I'm here to help, but if you do the definition, I also support that. That's fine.
Okay, so are we agreed we want to just tighten that up so that it's clear that we're not building, we're not saying you can't use public money to do septic to an affordable project, or maybe we are. But there are significant subsidy programs in place for perpetually affordable housing. We're talking missing middle, which is not, but middle income housing. Folks, and it's the kind of housing that older people could move down to
Yes.
and move out of the larger homes if they want.
VHFA, right?
So
Yeah, the VHFA is supposed to be guarding their dollars.
VHT and a draft.
Oh, sorry. We're looking for help in drafting for Tuesday. We're to send something out to us tomorrow, are you? We're trying to define. In this bill, our goal is to kind of subsidize the cost of moderately priced middle income worker housing. That was Jesse Ventura 30 years ago in Michigan. But Michigan, I believe, is the state that has really good vacancy numbers, and it was police officers, firefighters, teachers, nurses. You know, the group, I can still see the poster with Jesse Ventura.
Yes.
Not in
Minnesota.
So we're trying to find a definition that will make that clear. I don't think we're gonna do anything with your tax credits for the down payments. They can decide on first-time home buyers.
What about the ADU piece?
The ADU piece, there seems to be concern in here that's,
Yeah, sections 18, 19, and
19,
20 is
yeah.
that I do not like those sections.
Can we pick them?
I don't know what we need on that, but we've talked, for those of us who've been around for a while, section 18, as someone just said to me, is like mushrooms growing, you know, keeps popping up. And it's basically just all my love to the people who live at Wake Robin. Several of them are super dear to me, but they are higher income Vermonters, and this is a tax rate for them. And to the tune of $500,000 in the general fund. And then the property tax exemption for ADUs and certain property improvements, I also feel like those are with no income or value levels is just potentially tax breaks for wealthy individuals who are able to improve their properties and then not pay property tax on these improvements. And I just think that's a problem.
If we're lining up testimony for that, I'd love to hear from Alex Farrell, Commissioner of Housing, because I think he's made some good arguments for it, but I'm certainly welcome. to
Yeah,
the
I mean,
discussion.
Obviously, all I have is a sort of anecdotal information from my own district, but last year when I was knocking on doors campaigning, I discovered a whole bunch of ADUs that had been built because we provided all these incentives to build ADUs. And a lot of them were, really great. I was like excited about new housing in my district in places I didn't expect it. But it was often, higher end properties that had a lot of property and then built a home for their mother-in-law, which is lovely. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're not the kind of properties that we want to be providing property tax breaks for. And maybe the data is different than my anecdotal.
Alex Farrell could come in. Yeah, because there's no requirement when grandma dies or goes to the nursing home that go in to the long-term rental market.
Right, it could be just
now, if you build a
Airbnb.
really nice place for grandma, it can go in to the Airbnb short-term rental market and become a nice income property, which is fine, but I don't know that we want to exempt them from property.
Right, we don't want to be subsidizing that kind of.
I don't know, does it exempt them perpetually or for the first 3 years? 3 years, all right. So if we could do 3 years, provided it was being used as a long-term rental.
If I'm not mistaken, it suppresses the reappraisal for 3 years. So they're still paying taxes on the property. They just don't pay more.
Well, they're not paying on that newish improvement. If I fixed up my shed in the backyard, which would take a lot of fixing up, I would start paying the next April 1st because that's when I'm supposed to have reported to the town that I've made this improvement, or one of my neighbors makes it for me. But it's pretty, if you put a house in your backyard, if grandma is living in it, but the town is not going to want to assess if grandma is living in it. But it is an improvement that adds value to your property. And if you put you could go in, there's always going to be a sad story, but it is an improvement to your property, which you or the next owner can use as an income producer, depending on how nice it is, a significant income producer. I'm not, the 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm concerned about this section. I'm willing to hear from Alex about what he had to say and then make a decision. But I have heard testimony already in previous years on section 18, and I'm against that. It's just not a good use of $500,000 when we are going to be in real pain trying to help our most vulnerable over the next couple of years. I mean, every single day we are hearing more about the impact of those federal cuts. It's going to be brutal.
Our ed fund is not in great shape, so.
Well, that would be general fund.
No, not if you exempt it for property tax.
No, the medical expense.
Oh,
section
medical
18
expense
is general fund.
I don't know. Bottom line is when we redid that tax code during the last Tax Cut and Job Act, we went at it. And again, it started in the House and Janet Ansell had been trying since when did we do the Blue Ribbon Tax Commission? 2010, I don't think. Yeah, and that one had been set up to look at the competitiveness of our tax code. We were always listed as having the highest marginal tax rate, or one of the highest, therefore you shouldn't go here. When you looked at how graduated we are and how we're structured, your tax bill might actually be less, and if you were moderate income, it definitely would be less. But so they came back, and that's when they came back. They said, collapse that top one into your fourth category. Said, if you start taxing services, you could lower the the sales tax rate, and that would make you more competitive with New Hampshire, who always is New Hampshire. They had several recommendations like that. It was during the Great Recession. And all day, and they could not find a way to drop that top. It's like trying to go to the income tax. It sounds like just collapse it, but whatever they did, it resulted in a not great, but a slight increase in the middle brackets. And therefore, during a recession was not seen as a good thing to do. When we redid it in 17, because the tax cut bill, Vermont made $30 million of unforeseen revenue just because of the federal changes. We redid the tax code so that each bracket paid basically the same amount it paid the year before. And we were able to do away with the top bracket then. The bulk of the time in this committee was spent on the charitable deductions. Because every nonprofit in the state was sure, because you still got your federal charitable deduction, but we didn't have one at the state. Nobody mentioned medical deductions. Not a whimper. And there was no medical deduction here, other you can take it at the federal level. There was a general deduction. And Senate tried to get it in. House was very resistant. The next year, we got this very modified version in, and we were never able to get Wake Robin in because of their unique structure. So they are, in fact, not getting the same benefit that other people are.
You did take testimony on this last year, but there are 4 new committee members. So maybe if we had a refresher on the medical tax exemptions that we don't have. I remember that presentation from JFO.
And we've got a bill coming with tax exemptions, so we might be able to do it on there.
Good.
Okay. Because that is one we have worked on several times. And it is, yes, people that live there are wealthy, but they would be getting the same deduction if they lived across the street in their own house. They would be able to take a medical deduction. So it's really discrimination on the kind of housing you live in.
The other argument for this was that there was talk about one going, I think out in Caledonia County, there was potential developers. And so the fact that we don't allow this in Vermont, it was a detractor for that potential development, if I recall.
That is not the detractor. I marketed my local senior housing. The Gary home used to be, what do we call it? Continuing care or complete care. It was built by a maiden lady who said there should be some place, she was a seamstress, for women like her to go when they were old and tired and didn't have family to take care of them. You used to go in, you turned over all your assets, and they took care of you for the rest of your life. That was before there was much more that could be done. I mean, the medical standards, there just wasn't that much that could be done for you. So you stayed there, they took care of you. We have made the definition now of nursing home and the requirements, the cost of that has made it so that Wake Robin predated those changes and nobody else. It's just not worth it. Westview Meadows will help you. They have assisted living, but if you need more than assisted living, they will help you transfer to a nursing home. And so Wake Robin is the only one. And if we can find a fair way to allow them to have the same benefits. And ours is very, it's only what's over and above what you deduct on the federal, and you have to use your standard deduction to cover it. That you get something. So, okay, so we need on Tuesday. We need to tighten up this definition of moderate housing and do moderate middle income housing or affordable or perpetually affordable, maybe we'll call it. But affordable for middle income. We need to hear from BHFA about how you define that, what they're finding out there, in the marketplace. Let's ask, see if we can, Cheryl, if we can find the home builders and see if they'll come in and talk to us about what they run into. And I forget.
Chris Donnelly at CHT. You don't have to.
Chris, is he, they're the ones that are doing the, oh yeah, Champlain Housing.
Yes.
But there's the company that's doing the Middlebury project,
Oh,
Summit.
Summit Property.
ZP, that's what I want to hear.
yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
You want me to submit his contact?
yeah, let's
That'd be
see if we can get a developer in here just to make sure we don't tie their hands too tightly behind
We
their
want
backs.
people to do what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we want them to be producing, we're trying to subsidize their costs so they can sell at a middle level. And maybe that's not possible. But
It's possible there.
yeah, so we need to. Okay, I think
Drafter.
that keeps us.
Should we have a drafter here for that whole?
Oh, we most certainly, I
Yeah.
think we need at least two drafters here. The
Definitely.
ADU thing, are we gonna think about it? I'm sure you'll get called. We've got Alex.
Yeah.
Alex coming in. They can talk to us. I think that might be a Zorro sign. We haven't gotten any of those this year from the house. I always like that.
Yeah, I like those too.
Oh, these are us.
The Zorro sign, right? It's all gone. It's gone. You probably don't remember Zorro, the TV show. Okay, I think that'll keep us busy. That's what we'll do on Tuesday.
All of Tuesday for this, you think?
Yes. And, yeah, because everything else we've got is the House bill.
Oh, we were also going to do,
What were we gonna do?
Tuesday, we're going to do a walkthrough of H206 House Bill, and then we were also going to do a walkthrough and testimony on S120 relating to the regulation of virtual currency kiosk operators.
Virtual.
Let the bill be introduced.
Oh, yeah,
Somebody wants to be heard, just send them.
no, we're gonna get this one out first. Keep pushing them down. When we get, the H1 is the UCC code.
No, the H206 is an act relating, oh yes, UCC.
Okay, when we do that, we have a representative to the board. It's a national board. The drafter should know who that is and see.
I was told to invite Carl Listman, president. of
It is
Listman.
Carl. Okay, Carl Listman is still doing it.
Yes.
He's been doing it forever. I thought maybe he'd be retired by now. Yes, he could, if he could zoom in and just explain to us how the UCC works, because my understanding, they're gonna walk us through this, but it's up or down. We either accept the UCC code or we're out. It's the original version, I guess, of the compact system, but it's a national code, so commercial code, so that the rules are the same in every state and interstate commerce isn't being interrupted. So we will do that, but we'll do this on.
Yeah, we'll have to push that.
Yeah.
I have the lead, but are we
Yeah.
gonna take up S39, which was the school construction?
That's, all of that is gonna have to get done as part of our discussion, which once we finish with this S bill is what we're gonna be doing. We are getting a yield bill. I believe it is just setting a yield for next year. And in the budget coming from the House, it's $77 million to buy down that cost. Depending on what happens in Washington, we may or may not have that $70 million. There is money in the budget, $4 million, to do permanent people in the Department of Education to assist with transition to whatever we have.
Well, good, because
We
we
are
are
going-
using 73 of them, so.
We are going to get a memo from the Senate, who at this point has 12 districts on a map, which they are now going to be putting out to senators and then start having people in to look at. And so we're going to have a map proposal, and we will have a foundation formula for, I believe, next year, but I'm not clear on that. That was coming out by the end of next week is the goal. And I don't know if the proposal, that's what we're gonna do this year or next year, and what set of governance it's based on, or if it's just based on the present system. So we had canceled Tammy Colby, who has a proposal on what a foundation formula could look like. We can't get her next week. We've been trying to get her for the last 6 weeks, and she canceled. But we will be doing that. So we will have actual concrete proposals to start working on. And then we will work through and do what we do with them. As of now, as far as I'm concerned, everything is on the table. We have is at 104, which is the income. We haven't been through that one. There's a couple, the school construction, a couple of them are all gonna need to be included
Madam Chair,
in that.
I know it's a big topic, but I strongly support us taking some testimony on military pensions only because I know there's going to be more discussions and votes on it. So
They are,
I've never seen the
Okay.
testimony, so I'll put that out there.
I can tell you the testimony,
That's-
but they're in the budget, and I'm not taking them up until the budget decides they can afford
Sure.
to do away with some revenue this year. I don't know, there's also Social Security, which includes military pension increase in deduction. There's a couple other things.
I hear there's movement in the House for amendment on this, so that's.
Okay, then let's-
Yeah, I think there is intent on it, sure.
Yeah, there is just gonna happen over the next week. And one of the things in terms of the components, information has changed differently from what we've heard in past years because of the emphasis on the economic development aspect.
We don't have housing for them.
Well, they're the ones who will build it for us.
Then why don't, I can't in equity do that. This is an employment choice, just like being a police officer or fireman.
Well, I
We
think-
haven't had a draft in 40 years.
At
I
this
will,
point, we have the majority of the House who has signed on
I
for
know,
this, and
I know.
21 members of the 30-member Senate has it. I don't think it's fair to not deal with it.
It's riding in the budget. It will get dealt with someday. But I've got to find out a lot of things about revenue before I'm comfortable giving it away to anyone. And if I've got to, I'm going to give it away to people that are most negatively impacted by what's going on. Which right now, military pensions, if you're 40, you can deduct your military pensions if your income is up to the level we do Social Security. So there is a deduction. I'm going to be harder pressed to forgive the pension of the president of Norwich. Because I think he's probably better able.
I just don't understand what
Okay.
levers we set, and so maybe there's like some other levers, that's where I need to do some more research, I just.
So maybe we'll just
Yeah.
sit you down and join this one.
And the troops are just getting restless on this, I just would say that, I just want you to know that, so that.
I know the troops are resting.
See what happens over the House.
Okay, you can go home now. Yeah.
That was a long week, crossover.
It's gonna get worse. We're on the end of the session. We got home before dark. Last year, remember, we didn't get home before dark.
Better it started a trend of
Well,
buying pizza.
2 o'clock.
Oh, no, all the way to 10 o'clock
I
at
find
night,
dinner, she lets. Let's just get dinner.
bring in a potted show. How about some of my chicken soup?
It's gonna be a whole
There.
finance potluck night.
In addition to Jonathan Gray, who else would you want?
I think we're gonna need Cameron and Alice Farrell.
Yeah, but just.
Yeah, whoever the graphics were on that one.
Anyone from fiscal, so we like that there.
Yeah,
You said home builders.
yeah, home builder, but I don't know who represents them. Andrew Lewis representing home builders.
The son, he did testify that economic development, they have to his testimony.
Good weekend, the sun is out, the snow is stopped.
See, what?
I'm going home in bed. I haven't been home.
You don't go home?
Not this time. It's 7 o'clock last night. Some of those that I.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna go relieve my wife. Daycare was closed.
Idea.
She had both boys.